on this computer. Okay, awesome. Welcome to the third Divine Feminine Roundtable. We have Jen McCarty here. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Laura Eisenhower is going to jump in a little bit. But today's talk is actually about hope, inspiration, and confidence. And it's really about who are we, why are we, and how do we serve? So I want to start with a little story. I worked with a lady in Texas about 6 or 7 years ago who taught me how to see. I was challenged in see. Nina, can you mute, please? There you go. Awesome. So she taught me how to see. And we were taking a guided meditation class so that I could meet my spirit guide or my higher self. And so it was, you know, you walk down this path and there's a bridge with water, and what the water was doing had meaning. And I imagined this pathway where I could feel my bare feet on the ground. And then I would knock on this door, and whoever answered the door was my spirit guide. And in my practice, after the class, I went away and did this practice. The whole path, walked down, knocked on the door, and who answers the door is the Grim Reaper. And I'm like, what? What is that about? I came out of meditation. I was like, that was weird. So I go back to my class, and I shared this with my teacher, and she starts to laugh at me. And I'm like, why are you laughing? And she says, well, Spirit put that there. You would never put that there as your higher self. And I said, no, it would look like Thor. It'd be like Archangel Michael. It'd be really gorgeous. And that would be my spirit guide. She said, you need to go back and find out what the message is. So I'm like, okay. I go back into the meditation. I walk down the path over the bridge. I knock on the door, and it's the Grim Reaper again. And he goes like this, come on in, ushers me in the door. I walk in, and he takes his sickle, and he slices me from the right shoulder down to the left, and my body drops to the floor like a dress, and all I can see is this incredible rainbow prism of light. And I was like, holy cats. And the reason why I share that is because if that's what I see in me, then that is what we see in everybody, because it's not just going to be me, it's everybody. That's who we are. We're part of the divine, all of creation, all of life. So I wanted to share that to kind of kick us off, because, well, that's really what it is about right now, right? Is the collective. Chrissy, I think you're wanting to add something. I'm going to mute since we've had this echo thing happening this morning, and then let someone else chime in, and then we're going to jump into synchronicities, signs, and symbols.
I was more acknowledging. I haven't yet got the urge to speak. It will come.
Oh, well, I'd like to say, Paula, that's how I started, was that exact same meditation. It was actually written out in a book. So this is back in 1993. I found a book on channeling, and the exercise was to go in, and you actually walk down a path, you go into a building or a structure and sit down and call your spirit guide to you, and your spirit guide walks down the other path and sits down, and you have a conversation. And in the book it said you may meet many false guides before you meet your actual spirit guide. So that happened with me. I read this and thought, well, that's what's going to happen, and that's what did happen. I met many false guides, and what it said in this book is for you to say, are you my true real spirit guide of Christ consciousness? And this is what I did. And I'd have guides say, oh, no, I'm not. And then they'd leave. And then I'd try again. And another one, they'd say, no. You know, so because it says they can't lie. It said in the book, they can't lie. So this was my belief at the time going into this. And then it took about 3 weeks of continuous meditation. I almost gave up. Every time I met a guide and I asked that question, it said, no, they're not of Christ consciousness. And some of them were interesting, and they told me interesting things. Like when you met the Grim Reaper, and went back and saw the Grim Reaper a second time. That rainbow inside is the potential that we have, and the DNA activation, the rainbow, the chakra raising. So you still got messages from that Grim Reaper, but that Grim Reaper was not your true spirit guide. So I had the same. I had messages from different entities, and it was interesting, but I almost gave up thinking it's not going to work. And then on this one day, when I'd pretty much got to the point where I'd given up because I was so desperate to meet my real spirit guide, and I was making such a big effort with this meditation, and obviously that doesn't work. And it was finally when I thought, you know, it's just not going to happen. I'll just talk to all these different beings. Finally, when I let that go, this being walked down the path, and I didn't even need to ask the question, are you of Christ consciousness? Because the energetics blasted me through all my chakras, opened my heart. I'm sat there nearly in tears, and I remember saying, you are my true spirit guide, aren't you? It was a totally different, so I'd gone to that higher energy by allowing that surrender. So it's a really good one to start with. I'd also just like to welcome Jen. Jen and I did a chat the other day, and I invited Jen to join us, so nice to see you here, Jen.
I'm Jen Pixie. Love you so much, sister. Mwah. Love
you all. Shall I mute again, or shall we try and stay? I'll mute again now, I think.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That was not my spirit guide, but it did show me who I really was, which was the point, I believe, of my experience anyway. It might not have got me, because I had this false idea in my own kind of innocence, I guess, that when my spirit guide would come, you know, it'd be this big booming voice. Hello, Paula, this is your spirit guide, right? Like, I know it's so silly, but I thought it would be, you know, profound like that. But that's like Hollywood, right? Hollywood gives you this idea of what it's supposed to be like. But in all fairness, there's only one time I've ever had audio in meditation. And it only happened once, and I got 3 words, and I might have shared this before, and it was meet me here in the heart space. Like, I was focusing on the heart space, and I just got 3 words, meet me here. And since I started doing that, that is when all of these synchronicities started to coming into play. And what Daniel showed with his tape of that video game that he got, Magenta, holy cats, man, holy cats. That is so trippy. So synchronicities, signs, and symbols. I wanted to share a little bit more, if we can just move into that really quickly. Synchronicities are crazy. So what happened to me, basically, since we did the very first one of these, this is the 3rd one, so 6 weeks now. So somebody had reached out to me, and it was based on something I had said in the first Divine Feminine Roundtable. And when I tuned into her, as again, this is going to tie back to that lady who helped me see. When I tuned into her, I could see that her angel wings were pinned in her back, like they were bound somehow. And so she wanted me to help her work with some entity attachments, right? And all they are just energies. Like, we have our own inner demons, things that we're ashamed of, our guilts, our shames, things that we want to kind of hide away in the darkness. And that when we keep dismissing them and not addressing them, that's when they can, I suppose, start to build up and do their thing and interfere with perhaps our positive thinking and our true connection. So anyway, I said, okay, I'll work with you. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm not taking a penny from you until I have until this for sure works. And so I reached out actually to a couple of people who had experience in working with entity attachments and, you know, demonic energies and that kind of stuff, negative energies. And she gave me 2 people. One person was an advanced teacher in biofeedback, and the other one was a seer. So I got connected with a seer. Out of those 2 people, I wanted to work with her. She's a psychotherapist. We started talking about this, and I'm like, okay, I want you to mentor me in this. And she was telling me it's about a year's course, and I'm like, we don't have time. So she puts me on a fast track, right? I get with her for the whole weekend. Last weekend, we did the training on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I promise I'm going somewhere with this. So we start doing her training, right? She's teaching me this, and I tune into her again, and I can see this large serpent around her neck that's prohibiting her from speaking. The following Friday, we have Chinese food for the first time in 2 years. And this is I don't know if you can see it. I'll read you the Chinese fortune cookie. You have the power to turn evils to angels, right? Synchronicity. Her and I both get woken up at 3:33 in the morning. This is the mentor teacher. And she says to me, okay, you got to go buy this book. Oh, I forgot, sorry. Way back in April, I worked with Lee Carroll and Cryon, and there was somebody who made Sacred Geometry. So we did a trade. We just lost Jen. We're having some technical challenges, everybody. Sorry about that. Jen's disappeared. She'll be back on. So anyway, this gentleman makes Sacred Geometry, and he makes this tool for me, and his guides say it has something to do with the spinal fluid in the spine. That's in April. Back to a week ago, she says, oh, I want you to go get this book for this training course that she's done. And I already have the book. It's on my bookshelf that I've had for 10 years. And then on page 15 of the book, it says in here that so this is with the Pleiadian Council and the Dolphin Star Beings. And it says here basically that this will free the spine and skeletal system of the most basic holding patterns in order to allow and encourage the cerebral spinal fluid to flow more fully. Okay, and then on Thursday, this is the last part. I'm sorry, I'm going to get to a point, and then I'm going to shut up, I promise. And on Thursday of this week, the same teacher who taught me how to read, she gives me a reading, and she says, I see you in this beautiful white diamond crystal snow. You know, when you've got when the sun is shining and there's all diamonds. I think I told you this briefly, Tara. She sees me up to my knees in that, and I'm absorbing all the little bits and pieces of myself. And then she says she can see a laser pointer from the new moon engraving symbols on my spine. So there's the synchronicities over the last couple of weeks. I'm going to stop talking now, and anybody want to chime in, add?
Well, does it have to be on the same subject? Because I had something on a couple of nights ago that was very amazing, and I would like to cross-reference. I always like to cross-reference to see if people are going through similar things. But what I was told that the Friday, the 22nd of May, well, let me just first check with you, Paula. Is that okay if I can mention something that's, yeah? So I was told Friday, the 22nd of May was going to be a day that we were going to make an important decision. And I wasn't aware what that decision was going to be, but I was like, it will be shown. So I know more and more that I don't have to cerebrally wreck my brain about anything and just go along with it. But in the evening and in the process of falling asleep, I really, really felt a really interesting, very physical sensation where I could feel myself getting removed from the collective unconscious, from the matrix reality. And when I asked spirit, or higher self, what is going on, what became clear is that the choice we have to make now is if we are staying with the old matrix reality, which also means that a lot of our dream space is determined by that, because, a lot of the time we go into that unconscious soup, or if we're really becoming sovereign, like completely spiritually sovereign. And I understood that I'd already made that decision, so I was able to actually remove myself from it, but it wasn't like separating. It wasn't like, oh, them and me kind of thing, but it was more that I could feel this energy enveloping me completely, where I became fully sovereign and I didn't have to interact so much anymore in service of the collective unconscious. Now, it was a very, very real experience for me, and I don't often have them anymore, but this was really, really tangible. And I was really curious to see if anybody else had anything sort of similar.
Totally. Mind if I chime in here? Because actually, just before we joined on this call, I had probably the third one in the last 2 weeks since we last spoke of spinal clearing. And the one that was today, you know how it's all linked and it's like you open a door and it exposes something and you walk through, and then it was the next level and then the next level. And today's one felt absolutely huge, and it was all to do with responsibility. And I really want to share this with you ladies, because this is something we were talking about last week, about taking responsibility and, you know, being the healers and all of the clearing and all of the stuff that we've been doing. And today I realized the, if you like, the longevity, like the literally ages, millennia of Earth experience years, let's say, in my memory, in my spine, and not just in the spine, but what I call the core energy stream. You energy workers here, you'll understand what I'm talking about there. That connection that goes up and all the way through, like a string on a bead, and I'm the bead, and it connects and it goes all the way down and through, right? And how that is our highway, if you like, between masculine, feminine, divine energies, and how that's synonymous with the spine, and how the spine channels all of that information into the body like a lightning rod, grounding the light down the spine into the form, into the physical, and all the information that runs up and down the spine. And so today some beautiful revealing happened, where I realized that I take so much responsibility, not just as like the oldest daughter in my family or as the grown up for my parents. It went beyond that. It was like how much responsibility for thousands of years I have taken for humanity and for the pain, and this feeling of, because I can feel it and tap into it and sense it and see it, therefore it's my responsibility to do something about it. And I think this is collective, sisters. I feel like this is all of us and beyond, and that this reaches far more people out there, and it's a collective thing. So that's why I'm sharing it. It's not just a personal one. I really, really feel that this is huge. And that it was a sense of, when I followed the energy up to where that voice said, it's your fault, Tara. It's your fault that people suffer. It's your fault that it's not working. It's your fault that the healing isn't happening, that people aren't becoming more prosperous, or whatever situation is going on, that somehow, and this is not a conscious thought in my head, by the way, I don't walk around thinking it's my fault, but I followed it all the way up from my spine, all the way up to that core energy stream, all the way up to the top. And there was this dark, what sounded to me like masculine voice or a masculine energy, very dark, all the way up at the top, like a cap, like a lid on the top of the energy stream, saying, it's your fault, Tara. And that energy, that fault energy running all the way down, which is triggering my heart into, I need to now do something, I need to heal. And, you know, in my conscious mind, I'm like, I'm not responsible for everything. It's not my job. I don't need to do this. You know, but it was like that controlling force that feels like it's literally been there ages, and I mean millennia ages. And it was like being able to see it was really important for me, because as you all know, when you're facilitating, and just like you, Paula, with that story with that lady, when you're facilitating and supporting somebody else's realization or awakening or healing, and you're that whole space holder or the mirror, it's easier to see it for somebody else and get a sense of it and help clear those energies or release them from these contracts, these powerful, it's like a stake that runs all the way down through the energy and through the spine and anchors you, like that's you, that is, you know, it's like that false identity that's running in the unconscious. And we can support other people to help release that. But I'd never been able to have a clear enough mirror and a safe enough space to hold me where I could see my own. And that's the third healing that's happened for me this week, and it was all spinal related. And then it was like it got pulled out. I literally said, it's not my fault. It's really not. Did some healing and some clearing on it, and literally it was coming out of my back like this black cord coming out of my spine, and I felt like it was also coming out of my belly and my throat, and just giving it back and like liberating. It's been a powerful week for healing. It's been a powerful week for unlocking, and the healings I've done on other people this week of unlocking the spine and literally seeing programs come out of their spine and then straighten, and other illnesses and things leaving their body and belief systems leaving their body. So I love that you were talking about the spine. It's been really relevant for me. I'm putting down the stick. Thank you.
So Chrissy, you were talking about, it's funny you mentioned that actually, because I work with some guides. Melchizedek is the guides, and I go to a consciousness class we do every Wednesday. It's called Student of the Guides. And they were actually talking about humanity having a very important decision to make, which I think is what you're basically sharing. And that was, you know, who are you? Who are we? Because we are our brother's keepers. We are absolutely our brother's keepers. And that was the big decision that we had to make coming up as a collective. Because we've already decided, we've talked about this before, we've already decided that we want to move forward, that we want to evolve. We've decided that we're no longer going to agree to lies. But it's really about who are you? Who are you, and how do you serve? And why are you? So I, you know, what you're sharing is obviously that. I mean, that was the topic of the conversation on Wednesday in our class.
Yeah, and it did feel that that it is required that the group gets larger, because whatever is happening after this is kind of dependent on how many people are having this or have made this choice of either really shifting out of that soup and starting to create the reality that we want, or hanging out and staying in that soup, which then also determines a different outcome. So it became clear to me that whatever's happening, you know, when you were going through a transhumanism direction or more 5D co-creation, it was kind of also very much dependent on things that have been happening this week. I felt like where people were choosing to go. And it felt to me like there was quite a lot of people choosing the 5D direction. That's what I felt, but yeah, not sure.
I would love to speak to that. Can you hear me, Chrissy? Okay. I think it was just before this week that I had this experience with the mother, and she was saying to me, "Why don't you trust me?" I always thought that I trusted her. So I said, "I do trust you." And she said, "Then look at me, surrender to me, allow me to hold you." And all this emotion came up in me, like I didn't know that that was in me, and I felt it in my sacral area and in my womb. She said, "Come closer, let me hold you, let me hold you." And when I finally surrendered into her arms, I just was like a puddle of tears. And she was just holding me. It was the most beautiful healing experience. And I heard her say, after a while, I went through this whole process and I saw all of this energy leaving me and diamond light coming in, and how really I had done all this work around healing with the Sacred Father and with the masculine, but I hadn't really done this work around healing with the mother. And at the end of it, she said, "You have now exited 3D completely." And I heard it so powerfully. And then I went onto social media the next day, and this woman had actually written, "Hey everyone, I just want you to know I've exited 3D completely." So it was an amazing synchronicity, and I know that everyone else is going through this. And it's just so exciting. So absolutely, I am also feeling this, and I'm just so excited about this. Yes.
Yeah, if I can just add one thing to that, it was very, indeed, what you're saying is exiting the 3D, which can, in my opinion, only be done when you don't have that really strong feeling of responsibility anymore, that you have to, you know, that you've got to leave it behind in a good state and everything. And I couldn't do it before. I was like, no, I've got work to do still. And this was the first week really that I felt, no, I don't have to do it anymore. It's actually, I've done the best service I could do. And I'm happy to let go now. And what I like is when you mention the mother, you know, it's like you're not doing it on your own anyway, you know. You know, it's like it's a whole bunch of us, and at the end of the day, it's the mother that we can surrender into. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
May I really quickly chuck something? I know, Magenta, you're going to say something amazing, and I just want to...
I wasn't going to say anything amazing, I don't think.
You always do. No, I just wanted to tie that loop up with responsibility, Chrissy, because the kind of the undercurrent point that I was trying to make was, for those of us that have taken more responsibility because others have not, and in ignorance, in not awareness, in whatever it was that it wasn't taken, a lack of responsibility is a heavy weight, and it's a darkness. It's power disowned. And power disowned tends to go down to those lower levels, lower frequencies, lower densities, and into, you know, we could put a whole bunch of different names on that, but essentially that's what happens. And so for those of us that have been taking a lot of responsibility, and I know I speak for a lot of people here, that time, exactly like you said, Chrissy, for that ascension, for that a release from 3D is to not take responsibility for the whole thing anymore, and to liberate ourselves from that, and actually for people to come and take their own responsibility for their own healing, for their own sovereignty, for their own experience, for their whatever, their own choice, exactly, for their own choice. It's not up to us. And there's a much bigger game at foot, so that the mother does have us, the father does have us, creator source does have us. And I know we know this consciously, but it's the unconscious program that's been running for so long in all of us. And we know it. We're old souls. We've been doing this a long time. And it's unplugging that and unhooking that and releasing that channel, so that we can, when the spine is free of this old program, we can literally change form, change energy vibration in our entire body, you know, coccyx to, and, you know, and beyond, and completely transform. So that closes that. Thank you.
I just wanted to say, when I did my chat with Jen earlier, Jen, you mentioned a vision that you'd had about the mothership coming down, and we talked about whether that could be a literal interpretation, or is it a level of metaphor, or is it both? But I received an email from someone, and she said basically in her email to me, regarding your vision, basically the exact same thing that Nina has just said, which is about that connection with the mother. And she felt that the mothership was the connection with the divine mother, everything Nina said. So I just wondered if you wanted to share your vision that you discussed when we talked, because it's quite profound.
Yeah. So I bet I never really sort of adhered to the split, like Dolores Cannon, a lot of powerful teachers, they talked a lot about the split. But then just noticing what's going on at the moment collectively, and really, really profoundly seeing a split occurring, like I've never ever witnessed before, and it breaks my heart so much. So I was just kind of like just observing that, and a couple of nights ago I went to sleep, and just as I was about to go to sleep, it just was literally a download which came from the universe, and I just saw this massive ship, and I don't think it's going to come next week. It could be in 20 years, it could be even on another timeline, but I saw this massive like ship that could carry at least 1 million people, and it had all sorts of like garden, I can't even explain, but it was just like it was like a planet basically, and it was guided by the Pleiadians, and they were like, we've come to take all you starseeds to another planet where you're all going to be in fifth dimensional consciousness, and we're going to do this whole new earth thing, and this planet is going to be left to those that want the chips, want the masks, want to be controlled. And I was like, okay, I'm just observing, I'm not jumping on that, but because I've never really seen anything, I've always been one of, it's all within you, like everything's within you, the mothership is within you, and as a spiritual teacher, like I've been advocating that, like complete, just everything about that. So it was quite an unusual download to receive, but because it was so random, I was like, I have to really sort of like look at this objectively, and but you know, we spoke about it, me and you, and to be honest with you, Magenta, I think that it's a possible timeline unless we can reconcile. I think that if we can reconcile on the third dimension, which we are doing, like I know in my community, I mean, I've got a group of over 100,000, nearly 100,000 people, and loads and loads of them have transitioned now from being hardcore Liberal Democrats to really, really genuinely seeing the role that Trump is playing. So I know that I'm just a tiny little drop in the ocean that's having a massive ripple effect in terms of waking up people to their sovereignty, waking up people to the true agenda of the deep state and the cabal. So I am of the belief that we can turn this around, and it won't necessarily get to that point where the mothership lands. But it was fascinating to experience the ship, and they took me inside the ship, and it was amazing. Like everyone had their own little living quarters. It had like fully high tech. There was even like outdoor sort of facilities. It was a dream. It was an absolutely amazing dream. So but you know, tuning in, I don't think we're going to get there, or that might happen in 100 years, 200 years, who knows. It doesn't feel like it's imminent, but I definitely feel that we need to carry on just waking up our brothers and sisters for them to start claiming their sovereignty and detaching from this false governmental narratives.
So Jen, thank you for sharing that. And it's interesting because I had an insight that where I realized that at the same time, we also need to allow people to choose what they want to experience. And I have noticed that there are people that really want to experience transhumanism. Yeah. I don't know what part of them wants to experience it, but I was like, I also have to accept that they want to do that. And this would also maybe explain why 10 years ago, with the biggest vision I've ever had, I was told it was a mass consensual ceremonial death when I saw a whole load of people dying, and I didn't have the feeling that they were suffering at all, and that they'd chosen that path. So that it comforts me to know that it's not my responsibility what people choose to do, what path they want to follow. What I also find interesting is what you're saying about the mothership, is that there's a Kogi shaman who said a similar thing when he started looking at what's happening right now. He said, "Oh, this is really strange. I can see a literal transfer happening to another reality." He said, "I can literally see these people being taken out, the benevolent being taken out and put somewhere else, and the sort of evil being quarantined." And that was very unusual for him to say that. He never says stuff like that. But when he started tracking, he literally was like, wow, okay, this is incredible. I can see it literally moving, which would kind of be in line with what you're saying.
Yeah, I completely agree. Of course, everyone, like as awakened women, we know that everyone has got their own soul contract with Mother, Father, God, and if they're on the path of awakening, so be it. And if they're on the path of transhumanism and slavery, so be it. And of course, it's not for any of us to intervene with people's individual sovereign free will. All we can do is keep on serving in the way that we're being guided to. And I believe that the ones that I've been working with have made a soul contract to fully activate their sovereignty, and those that aren't, they just get very irritated by me and all my posts. So what to do?
Okay,
I would love to speak about the AI and the and specifically about the mothership, because just this week I had an experience with the mothership as well. I was in my yard looking at the stars, and I heard this very strong message say, "Go to the backyard." And all of a sudden, I saw all the light. I mean, it was powerfully just beaming. So I went to my backyard, and I looked up in the sky, and there were lights flashing, and they were moving like this, hovering back and forth. So I'm standing there, and I'm like, and it's starting to form a big circle, like a huge circle in the sky. And all I felt was just so much love. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is the mothership. And I felt the presence of Christ and Buddha and all the avatars and gods, goddesses, you know, of benevolence, family. And this message, which was like, it's us looking at ourselves. It was just so familiar. So then I call my mother, because I really needed to know I was not the only one seeing this, because you never know. My mother comes out and she looks up in the sky and she's like, "Do you see that?" And I said, "Yes, I see that. That is the mothership." So a very powerful experience. And the message was, we go where you go. Whether you move from this physical location and it was very clear, we are with all of you. And we are here now. We are you. We will see you soon. We're in this together. But it wasn't, we're going to save you, we're going to rescue you. It was, you are now remembering who you are, where you came from. You are waking up. And so now we are getting closer and closer, because the more that you recognize your higher selves and embody that, the more that you see it in this reflection. We are getting closer because you are changing your resonance. You are changing your frequency. It was so powerful. And right after that, a friend sends me a message, which is about the New Jerusalem mothership has just arrived. And it was all about how in the Bible, when they spoke about New Jerusalem, it was actually about the stargates and the mothership. And I felt into that. It just felt so aligned. So I wanted to speak to that. The second thing that I wanted to share is that, yes, I have received the same message this week. It is why I actually had to leave my marriage. What I heard is he's choosing a different path, and he's not choosing to ascend the way you are. And what has become clear this week is there is a group that would like to experience AI. They're very tempted by it. They're seduced by it. They want to have that experience, and they have to be allowed to have it. There's a huge group of us that do not want to, and we don't have to have it. And when I was in Paris last year, what is very interesting is that in the midst of an art gallery show, it was a Van Gogh live art gallery where all of the art is moving around you, classical music, very archangel, angelic, all of a sudden in the middle of this show. And it was my birthday, actually. The lights all go black. And my spidey senses were like, all right, what's about to happen? Angel wings up. And the next thing I know, flashing all over the walls are images of AI. And nobody said this is AI, but it's like hardcore trance music, black and white, like total matrix images. And the whole frequency of the room went, So I was just like, okay, I'm sovereign in this. I'm going to hold the frequency here of love. But I was watching how everyone's hearts were just turning off, almost into this kind of robotic Nazi nature. And I knew it was AI. And at the very end of it, it said, artificial intelligence art display. And then it went back to the archangels so I knew this was part of their agenda, because they always show you what they're going to do before they do it. But what was very interesting was that I was the only person in the room that had this kind of response. No one else in the room was able to kind of consciously be like, whoa, what's happening to me? This is making me feel sick. So I just wanted to share that, because I definitely see how they've been weaving it into our lives, taking away what's organic and beautiful, created from that connected Christ consciousness place, into this plastic, artificial, metallic, robotic, completely unemotional, the opposite of empathy.
I've had very similar information to Nina this week. In fact, only a couple of days ago, I had the exact same phrase, welcome to the New Jerusalem. This is the New Jerusalem. The New Jerusalem is coming. Didn't really know what that meant, but I've had that come through. Lots of information about AI as well, and everything you say about people having to make a choice. Some people want AI, others don't. But what the Nine also said, and this connects also to the mother energy, mothership, and portal energy, is the opening of this Alcyone portal. And what they were saying there is this is connected to our reincarnational cycle, which has been hijacked by the dark forces for thousands and thousands of years. All star seeds who are awakening to the higher fifth dimensional frequency are released from that, and many new souls right now, over this last sort of week or so, are also choosing to be released from that reincarnational cycle. And I think that goes along with what Tara was saying about the releasing of the spine, the spinal fluid. It's all connected to that. So people are moving away from these dark programs. They're freeing themselves on a soul level. And so what the Nine was saying is the Dark Cabal are shifting their strategies from, rather than controlling the reincarnational cycle, which is about controlling consciousness itself, enslaving humanity's consciousness, rather than using the reincarnational cycle to do that, so that we're in a trapping system and we're continuously reincarnating back to this planet against our will, if you will, that's being shifted into more of an AI construct, so that consciousness is then trapped within an AI system rather than a reincarnational system. And this is what is happening. And what the Nine was saying is that the higher galactic sources, they bring in an antidote. So they don't overstep our free will, but if the dark ones make a move, then they bring in an antidote. So the antidote to the reincarnational trapping cycle was to send in the starseeds. The starseeds chose through their own free will to come into this reincarnational cycle, and as they came in, their higher DNA configuration created such light that the trapped souls were able to catch that, if you will, and then free themselves. So the same thing is happening now, but with this AI consciousness trapping, they are sending in the antidote, which is to do with the opening of this Alcyone portal, the New Jerusalem, and this new awakening, these new light codes, these new DNA configurations, so that we make the choice to preserve our consciousness organically rather than using it through AI. Now, the way this has to be done, and Jen will probably kind of, I think, resonate with this, is when a false dark matrix technology is presented, the way things are on the physical level at the moment in the third dimension, the only way to be able to present the antidote, the grounding to the higher dimensional antidote, is to come up with a copycat technology that looks like the dark technology, but it's really light. For example, the Maxines. We've got the Gill Bates, World Health Organization, etc., with the dark Maxines. And then we've got President Trump coming in with cures and with Maxines that are not harmful, Maxines of light that are genuine. The same with the technology that's above 4G. So we have the harmful version, weaponized bioweapon, if you like, and then we have the watered down, filtered version. The same thing will occur, and this is all sort of happening now-ish as we go forward, but we won't be seeing evidence of this until 2021. This trapping using AI consciousness, there will have to be some presentation of AI that looks like it's negative, but it will actually be the same kind of thing, but used in a positive way. So it may be that starseeds, even if they want to completely reject all AI and go organic, it may be that starseeds will become aware that some of the AI is used in positive terms. So rather than having a life extension AI program, which is a trapping system preventing organic growth within higher dimensions when you leave your body, this could be a life extension program that is a healing modality instead, and that helps people to utilize the fullness of a human body, but they might have problems with their physical body. So there's positive things within that AI, and it's all blended together. And what the Nine said is, all those of you who have that discernment, that empathy, that intuition, now is the time to really ramp that up, so that when these programs are shown to us, we will know the difference between the dark, the light, what is used as a trapping system and control, and what is actually used as freedom. Because we can't all go, this is AI and this is organic. Because the way to get to the organic is to come in with the AI that looks like the dark in order to take it down. Otherwise, it's the same with the Maxines and the above 4G. it's not, it's not possible for us to run away from that because of the way the hijacking is taking place. So we're coming in with the copycat of light, and then we're able to move into the organic. Does that make any sort of sense to anyone?
Actually, my friend just sent me something this week, which is a quantum healing machine, and it's using artificial intelligence. And I didn't realize it was connected to AI, but as I'm watching the video about it, and it's all about harmonic frequency, and that it's able to use your cell phone to connect to your frequency through quantum healing to increase your frequency and balance you to the tone, the frequency and the vibration to bring in perfect health, even abundance. And I know that really works. So I thought it was very interesting to see that it was associated with the word AI. So that completely resonates. And my higher self, I was very open to this type of a product. I trusted it immediately. I knew that it's really quite amazing.
Can I just, oh, sorry, no, go on, Paula.
Thanks, Jen. So Araya is the lady that is mentoring me, and she actually, this totally ties into what we're talking about right now. She can actually hear the conversations that Gil Bates has in the middle of the night. Her guides are waking her up at 1:26 in the morning, and she can hear him and their plans. And what they're trying to do is use nanotechnology through the spraying and whatnot to trigger AI within whether we've breathed it in or whether it's through other means. But what they did is they showed her, it's really interesting because they showed her while she was listening to their conversations, and she could hear them say, Gil specifically, who happens to live just down the street, which is kind of trippy, you are our slaves. And so they showed her, and this is interesting because my guides as well have shared that we're going to start working a lot more energetically. And this ties into the proactive part. How do we dismantle this as a collective? So they showed her actually all of the contracts that we can do as a collective, as powerful collective starseeds, priestesses, people of the light, on how we can dismantle them for other souls that have been trapped, that are stuck in the mind control. So she's going to teach that actually to us in a couple of upcoming sessions. But I thought that was like crazy that she can actually hear their conversations. And just to sort of confirm that, in one of the Q posts, those that follow, those that don't, it's totally cool. But in one of them, it was shared that there was an intercepted communication between the hours of 1 and 4 a.m. by a particular individual who was not successful in the last election. You can discern who that is. And it was really, what they intercepted was keep them blind, keep them dumb, keep them stupid. So that was the attempt of the control. But anyway, she's been shown how we can dismantle the AI in the higher realms so it can no longer mind control the masses, and then they can use their own free will choice to choose what they want without any of that interference.
I'd like to just speak to that a bit, Paula, because I think that it's really important that we call out the fact that there's a multi-dimensional chess game that's being played out. And my intel is very clear that the white hats have won, that the white hats are in control of the narrative. So that would, when I've tuned into Neil Bates, whatever his name is, higher self, I feel that he's at Gitmo. Like, I feel that he's been taken out, and I feel that it's CGI and other forms of artificial intelligence, that the white hats are using him to rub this in their face to activate the next wave of awakening, because it's just too obvious. Like I can't say her name, that video that they did with the spirit cooking lady, like I mean, it's just stupidity. It's absolute stupidity. The fact that they've got all the bills to 666. So to me, it's like, it seems really, really obvious complex, that there are multiple dimensional timelines that are being played out. And I definitely feel that the white hats have won, and that the golden age timeline has anchored on the 5th dimension, but that's actually now playing out on the lower dimensional levels. But I feel that all these deep state players are under the control and direction of the white hats, who are using them to awaken the masses by just shoving the atrocities and the out of controlness. Like, they're trying to control humanity to such a large extent that is waking up so many people. So many people are taking the red pill right now because of the 666s all over the shop. And I think that it's really, really important in this discussion that we have that in our consciousness, that it, you know, it's very, very complex. And we spoke a lot about this in our video, the video that I did with Magenta Pixie. So I just wanted to put that out there. And I just also wanted to say one more thing about the mothership. When everyone else was talking, I was getting further downloads that because now this Pleiadian, Alcyon Stargate has now opened, it feels like the galactic's energetics are getting much, much, much closer. And I feel that is connected to humanity's collective vibration. So many people that are on the awakening path, that have taken the red pill, that do know what's going on now, that has raised humanity's collective vibration to call in this next level of galactic support. So I feel that when I was seeing the ship, I think I was seeing it in real time coming into our atmosphere to offer energetic support. But as we know, the Pleiadians work on a higher dimensional reality. So it could also be a 6D timeline that is showing itself. So it's very, very complex and multifaceted. But I would like to say that I feel that the vision that I got about this Jerusalem mothership was definitely to do with like a real boost of galactic support coming into our atmosphere based on our collective vibration, which is really, really shifting with so many people waking up now. Just want to chuck that out there.
I had total deja vu when you started talking, Jen. I was like, whoa, really, really strong deja vu. And it's like, such incredible energy of everything you just said. So, few things. I have to get this off my chest first because my heart is just bursting out of my body. Because as you're talking, I'm getting all these messages coming through that we need to remember that the children who are not yet on this planet, they've already chosen. They've already made their decision. Well, it kind of wasn't a decision. It was just what was happening anyway, and what wants to be and what is happening, in that they are in the complete golden bands, golden ray bands, and there's many of those. I wouldn't even begin to try and categorize it into dimensions or whatever, because there's a whole multi-bandwidth of frequencies of love strands, of multiple soul strands, timelines, all happening simultaneously in this amazing, powerful collective energy that's coming through with the children that are not yet born and the ones that are being born now. And in fact, I just want to speak to this, like lockdown. My kids were saying yesterday, like they're starting to, loads of my kids are like 18 and 19, and they've got friends who are suddenly like conceiving and becoming parents, and they're like, this lockdown is a love-in. It's like there are babies being made. And there's probably going to be like, you know, what do they call it with the post-war babies? It's going to be like the post-COVID babies, you know, the COVID boom, if you like, with all the babies. But there's a lot of incredible souls coming into the planet, and all of our children that are already here. Like my kids are the kids that have already made a choice, and it's not their, what I'm hearing right now, it's not their battle to fight. It's only those of us, the old souls that have been here for again and again and again, and then all those lower frequencies that have been trapped on this planet for a long time, that this is the choice for the history of humanity that is making. And it's our choice, and it's like what we want to create and what we want to experience next, and where we want to go, if it's off planet in an AI environment, or if it's off planet in a natural organic environment, or if, you know, or if it's on planet, whatever it is, that we're making these decisions for where our souls go to next. But for there's many souls that are already here, those children, they're already establishing themselves and their choices as they grow into empowered adult beings. And that all the children that are yet to come here, there is no choice. It's divine will is the choice. It's it's the unconditional love and the multi-strands of those frequencies, which is amazing. And I also just want to add about the mothership thing, and I just get goose pimples when you said that, because Chrissy, just before we did this Divine Feminine Round Table, the first one, I called Chrissy up one morning and I was like bawling my eyes out. I'd got woken up at 6 o'clock in the morning with intense tummy pains, and I just never get that kind of pain. I was lying in a hot bath, and I get a lot of messages in the bath, and I hear, pack your things, it's time to go. I think I might have shared this on the first round table. And I was like, what do you mean pack my things? Like, what am I going to do? Like, empty my house? Because where am I going? You know? And it was my Pleiadian family, my star family, saying, we miss you, it's time to come home. And they were showing me that they are collecting, and they showed me this like 12 years ago as well. And I'm getting the second wave of these visions coming through, showing me exactly what you said, Jen, and what you've said as well, about a whole bunch of us who, you know, understand and recognize this let's call it Pleiadian energies as home frequency, as where we came from collectively, and that we've always had a longing to go back to, that they're coming and they're just going to basically take us off planet for this wave to happen, this cleansing, this healing, the battle, whatever's going to happen, however it plays out to happen. And they didn't show me beyond that where we go, other than they said, we're going home, pack your things, we're going home. And I called Chrissy and I was told her this thing, and she was like, oh yeah, me too, I got that message this morning. and then yesterday, like you, Magenta, yesterday I get that same thing. It's like, no, like, empty the garage, get rid of your stuff. Like, you're literally physically going, get clear the environment, clear up all your old stuff, put things away. And that feeling of, just like you said, Magenta, that the distance now between us and Galactic Center, like, we forget that we're traveling supremely fast through the universe right now to Galactic Center. We are physically traveling. I'm feeling it in my body. The speed at which we're traveling and the proximity that we are to that central sun is expanding everybody's hearts wide open. And again, yesterday, that same message is like, you're going home. You're going home. So I haven't seen a ship, but I fully, completely, like, gives me goose pimples. I get it as well. So that's all of us.
Thanks, Tara. Just bringing it really, really back to the planet. Just on a practical note, right? Let's just say no mothership, and we're here, and we're going to have more of an artificial intelligence development happening here. How are we going to cope with that? From my own insight, when I've asked, I was shown that there's going to just be 2 timelines on the planet. One, so the frequency you're in will define your experience on the planet. So even if there's lots of artificial intelligence stuff happening, you might not even notice it. You might just sail through it without any issues. That feels like very true to me, but I'm really curious to hear how you feel, how you will navigate through this stuff. You, as in all of you.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think it's based on, you know, I did not read the Bible, but the kingdom of heaven is within, right? It's the internal world where we find peace and where we find love. So I think it's basically where you resonate, where you vibrate. And if you do not agree to the idea of fear anymore, or anything that would interfere with your sovereignty, you resonate in a completely different area. And yeah, I think it's like you don't have the ears to hear or the eyes to see. You're literally in a different reality in the same restaurant as someone sitting beside you. And I just want to add, going back to the mother energy again, which certainly seems to be a very, very strong theme over the last couple of weeks. After I was doing this, going back to what I'm learning last week, my guides call it an echo, that what you bless, blesses you back. It's kind of like the law of action or the law of correspondence, right? That beautiful infinity symbol. And I had done my practicing with this client, like in my learning or whatever. And I was sitting, it was later on in the afternoon, I'm sitting at the kitchen table, and it was beautiful and sunny, and I'm just staring outside. And I started to cry. And my husband's like, why are you crying? Like, was there something wrong in your course, or like, what happened? And I'm like, I am just being filled up right now by this most incredible love. It's like I I gave of myself in any way that I could, like however I could in this learning that I did earlier in the day. And I'm now receiving this echo, this love, this incredible overwhelm of love and energy just sitting in the kitchen. And I was so humbled. So I think it's where you resonate. It's what you align to. And then when you go back to the idea that we're electromagnetic beings, right? So and Magenta, you've talked about this with the DNA expanding. And my guides have talked about how we don't have to slog in the mud anymore. How things are called to you. So since the heart frequency, when your heart starts to sing the song of the universe, it's the magnetics of your heart, the electromagnetic, that calls to you people and teachers and experiences that prove more or show you more of who you truly are. And that's when we start living heaven on earth. That was just kind of like my thought on that.
It's almost like we're practicing what we preach. Practicing what we preach. You know, we have to now, you know, if the energy has shifted to such an extent, we're now being invited to go and here's your playing field. Now go and create your realities. And I feel to an extent that's already happening because we're in the middle of this corona epidemic. And to be very, very honest with you, like I've had the best few months recently because I've been really in nature. I've been really taking it much easier, so much more in the Schumann resonance, you know, and it's making me really happy. So then somebody comes in and starts talking to me, blah, 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 corona, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, whoa, what? Oh yeah, corona. Okay, yeah. You know, sometimes you have this sort of little clash of different realities happening. And then you realize again, oh yeah, there's a whole epidemic thing apparently going on here. And I don't mean to sound selfish or anything. It's not like I don't care. I obviously do care, but it's just not in my daily reality. Touch wood, help. Touch wood.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes. Sorry. So what you said about living on different, in this world, but with different vibrations, I'm often drawn back to this analogy that our DNA is a bit like popcorn. And so you've got the sort of like the hard kernel version, which represents our third dimensional dualistic consciousness. But then you've got the popped version of that, which is the fifth dimensional expanded version. So I think what's good to talk about is how do we get from that hard kernel to the popping, and we do that through being present by really prioritizing present moment awareness over all narratives of the egoic consciousness, by becoming very much addicted to gratitude, by counting our blessings, by guiding where our consciousness is focused in each moment, as opposed to being dragged along by again the egoic fear-based narrative. So I think it's really important that we just empower everyone that's listening, that, you know, that you will experience reality based upon your vibration. So if you're in that hard kernel vibration, then you're going to meet other people that are on that vibration, and that is going to be your reality. But if you do your work on your awakening path, and you do the work, and you prioritize becoming present and focusing on gratitude and kindness and service, because that is the ultimate way to decalcify the pineal gland, is through kindness and service to all of our brothers and sisters. So if you really deeply commit to that, not pay lip service to that, but commit to that path for the rest of your life, then you will shift out of that hard kernel popcorn to the fluffy and expanded popcorn. And then when you're in that expanded popcorny place, then you will then attract other people like us lot, like Magenta Pixie, like us other popped corns, and we will start creating our own world. And we spoke about that, didn't we, Magenta, about how it feels like lots of our star seeds are getting, like, have had really strong visions to go and build our communities and create our communities with our beautiful organic straw bale homes and our temples, and having such a deeply held galactic temple space. So I think until some sort of like clear split happens, if it does, there's going to be that going on. So I just offering that just to keep everyone's, you know, consciousness super expanded around all this.
Totally. Can you hear me? Jen, I resonate with that so deeply, because just this morning before I came on, I received a transmission, and it was about how are you going to create this new world from your higher selves, in which that is the center of it, and what does it look like? And also they said, why do you feel the need to give permission to something outside of yourselves in order to create that? Because so many people that I work with and have worked with, especially this week, a lot of what they're saying is, well, this, but who am I to live it? Or I know my gifts, but who am I to share? And it's really just this conditioning from being born into this draconian system, which tells you to constantly put your power on something outside of you. Okay, it's okay for you to now be in your higher self because we've now given you permission. Well, that's never going to happen, because you and your higher self is a relationship of sovereignty. But they were specifically saying the types of conversations that we should be having right now are all about what does it look like to live in a sovereign world and to raise children in a sovereign manner, to build sovereign homes, to have a sovereign trade system. And that this is our natural way of being, and those of us that came here, that is within us most naturally.
Okay, I think we're having some technical. We can't hear you. Sorry, you kind of.
Nina,
can you guys see me?
Yeah, just the last 30 seconds we lost. Try it, say it again.
Yeah. Just they were saying that now the conversations that we should all be having are with each other of what does it look like, and really remembering that we know what it looks like. And the more we connect to that 12-strand DNA, the more that we'll be creating from that place of what does it really look like to create and rebirth a new sovereign world and system that is in alignment with all of our higher selves. So it's a very exciting time, practically in a grounded manner, bringing that into what do sovereign homes look like, and raising children, relationships, trades, living your purpose. And specifically for those people that are still working on finding how to express their purpose, it's to start looking at where in yourself you've given your power away, within why you can't live it. Who told you that? Because if you track it, you'll find the root of that. So I just wanted to share that.
And I just want to quickly throw in sovereign birthing. Like, birthing a child in pain is a foundation for first experience before you're even in the world is pain. You know, and coming into the world is painful. And birthing as a sovereign woman in your power is completely blissful. There's no pain association. It's off the charts, blissful, ecstatic, orgasmic, incredible, divine creation experience. It's like I am one with God, creator, source, goddess. It's that experience giving birth, and I've done it twice, and I know lots of other women have done it. And it's not about whether you're good enough or not good enough. It's just simply a choice, love or fear. Same choice that we're having now, love or fear. You want to be in love and appreciate and gratitude. And I think it's called the law of reciprocity, law of reciprocity, that what you bless, blesses you. And that gratitude and that opening to the heart, opening to love, opening to the life itself as the most incredible gift ever. Whether it's your breath, that you can open your eyes, that you can create, that you can conceive, that you can give birth to a child. And we women give birth, or can choose to give birth to a child, to new life. And the new earth is populated through our bodies. As we birth, and it starts not just with the birthing, but with the conception, the divine conscious union, conception, free of limiting programs. Ideally, that's our work. But then it also goes another step beyond that, in my experience, of like the preconception. What are your intentions? What is your highest dream that you want to envision, speak, put into love, give power, give action to, create, conceive, have divine communion with, co-creation, divine masculine, feminine energies, and birth it onto this planet. And to do so in absolute surrender, in absolute love, with supreme presence. Like you said, birthing is absolute presence with source, with the body. It's total presence that enables that blissful transition for that new spirit, that new soul into the earth. And it's a blissful experience for the mother, and everybody that's in a mile vicinity, I swear, feels it. It's like, it's off the scale blissful. And that is what's wanted of us, what's being asked of us when I listen to those children not yet born, that place where their souls are. That's what they're co-creating with us, is for us to get out of our own way, and just open and receive. Like you were saying, it's not about pushing and working hard. It's to open and receive the grace, the blessings, the love, the life, the choice, the love that's here, and allow it to move through our bodies, and to literally, physically, whether it's creatively with business, whether it's tantrically with a partner, whether it's communications like this with sisters or brothers, or whether it's a child, we are literally physically birthing a new earth through us. And to do that with supreme presence and awareness and extreme humility in the grace that is in that we get to co-create, we get to experience that as human beings, is just unbelievable. So yeah, putting down.
And Clara, when you speak about birthing, I mentioned that last time that I've visited a woman in her shack who's a doula, and when she was talking about how she was creating a birthplace here, I could see and feel a vortex appearing and opening up, and it was very, very huge. And it reminded me of a vortex that I've seen and felt when I've helped a few people, family members, die. So I realized that whether you're coming in or you're going out, it's kind of the same thing of this huge vortex opening. And it felt, if I was to describe it, as a very sacred space. And I then realized, like, wow, how important it is to create that space for birthing and dying. And because you're literally connecting with the absolute source, really. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to just agree with what you're saying there, Chrissy. Can you all hear me? When I was giving birth to my son, there were a few complications, and he was struggling. He had the cord wrapped around his neck, so each time I was contracting, the cord was being pulled. And there were doctors everywhere and nurses everywhere, thinking that basically the baby was going to die. But I'm on this gas and air, and the gas and air linked me into such intense, focused channeling. And this is like 25 years ago, because it opens you up. So I had beings talking to me, completely telling me different things, to all the midwives, but about the vortex, which I didn't understand at the time. So I just saw it as a tunnel. I actually saw this vortex literally with my physical eyes open up before me. And I thought to myself, oh, I must be seeing the birth canal. I must be seeing the tunnel that the baby is coming through. And then another one opened, and I could see two, and they were kind of superimposed. And I then knew that one was the birthing tunnel for the baby. The other one was for the baby to leave, because the baby was struggling between my son, who's now a robust 6 foot 25-year-old. But at the time, there were these two vortexes, these two tunnels, and the baby was teetering between the two of them. And I knew what was happening, and I had this sort of cosmic midwife telling me, your baby is strong, it's a boy, but he is in trouble, and we need you to listen to us, not to the staff. We need you. It's very, very important that you listen to us. So I had all of these midwives saying, don't do this, don't do that, or do this, stop doing that. And well, you know what it's like when you're giving birth. They're telling me to to stop pushing. Sorry, don't push, stop. And they were trying to get an epidural into me to prevent me from pushing. But I had this inner midwife saying, don't listen to them, listen to me. Well, now we need you to push, and we'll tell you when, and we'll tell you when to breathe. And then they were saying to me, you must not let this anaesthetist give you the epidural. So I'm trying to stop him from giving me the epidural while they're trying to get me to sign the form to have the epidural. I'm like, no. So I'm listening to all this inner stuff, and it was absolutely so profound. And, everything was okay. He was born as a complete shock to the midwife, because she actually told the other staff around me that this baby was going to take absolutely ages to be born. And I kept saying, he's a boy and he's coming now, he's going to be born in 5 minutes. And they were saying, yeah, she's off her head on the gas and air. So I was right. What happened, luckily I had my sister with me. I kept grabbing her arm and saying, they're talking to me. The spirits are talking to me. My sister knew me, and she was like, look, my sister knows stuff. Is there any way she could be right? And they're like, no. And afterwards, my sister said, she was right, wasn't she? And there's the midwife, well, yes, on this one occasion, she was right. But the interesting thing, and it's such a profound experience, and my son has been spiritually awake since day one. He's never, ever shut down out of all of my children. And I only had this experience with the one birth. I've got 5 children. He's the only one that's remained aware. But the interesting thing was about those vortexes, these tunnels, there were 2, how they were superimposed, and how the birth space coming in was so very similar to that. It's the same vortex going out. And to see the 2 simultaneously in front of me, I now know that was an experience that's part of my meaningful subjective experience. So I had to learn about, coming into this reality and leaving this reality, and how they're so intertwined. Because ascension, that's what we're doing. We're all going through that vortex while we're staying in our bodies. We're not leaving. And so, yeah, I just wanted to share that as we're talking about mothers and...
Oh, man, you're making me cry. I was just like holding back the tears, because I'm just thinking it's such a sacred space that opens up, and the sacredness is so profound. And when you then say that there's these, well-meaning staff members, basically taking you out of that state. And I mean, it's in Mind the Matrix, the series as well. I'm interviewing this amazing woman who says exactly what you say. She was absolutely in tune. And the birth could have happened in a beautiful, divine manner, and yet she kept on being disturbed, and taken out of that. And it just makes me emotional, because I think that's where the first trauma in a way starts again, and you're almost set up again for another vicious cycle of starting off with trauma, dying with trauma because of not settling our issues, so we want to break through that. And in a way, what I love you saying is that we're going through it now, but without shedding our body. We now have the ability to do it fully consciously.
They actually did something physical as well. So because they were so desperately trying to get me to stop pushing, because every time I pushed, the cord was going around the baby's neck. But I had this cosmic inner midwife explaining that the baby was in the birth canal, and they didn't know this. And if they stopped me from pushing, then baby would suffocate in the birth canal. And they were telling me all this. So it was imperative I listened to them. At the same time, the midwife is saying to my then partner, my baby's father, can you help me to close her legs so she can't push? Now, he's a 6-foot guy and really strong. So he's pushing my legs completely closed with all his strength, listening to the midwife. And I'm saying to this cosmic midwife in my head, what am I going to do? I can't push. And they said, don't worry, leave it to us. We will help you. And as I came to push and they told me to push, I literally felt these hands go around my leg and pull my legs open. And my 6-foot boyfriend went flying across the room, banging into all of the stuff as these hands were able to open my legs so I could push. I mean, you know, I know that's probably not really a particularly delicate topic of conversation, but it's an experience and it happened to me. So what I'm saying is that that higher energetic, when you have such a connection and an alignment with it, it can actually affect your physical body. And I'm not strong, you know, and I'm small, and my you know, I was giving birth, and my boyfriend at the time was 6 foot and strong. So where are these cosmic hands, you know? Is this the power of the mind? Is this actually entities in the room able to affect the physical body? Is that one and the same thing? So yeah, that's my profound birth story, which I've been, you know, I told my son many times about his entrance into this world, and I think he kind of feels that that's something quite magical, really, for his birthing.
That's the whole point, right, Magenta, is that when we believe in magic, when we believe in a power that we can't see but we can feel, we experience a completely different reality. And because we know really there is no death. That's a falsehood. We just transform. I was present with my dad. He transitioned in 2013, so go from birth to death, the other end of the canal. And it was the most beautiful thing I have ever witnessed in my life. I'm sitting at the end of his bed. It was actually in England. He had gone home there, and my mom and my two sisters were there, and I was sitting at the foot of the bed. And and my sister's a nurse, so she's explaining, you know, what happens with the breathing. It gets very labored, and then there's, you know, very quiet, and then a big in-breath. And at the moment that he took his last breath, inside my world, I could hear, oh, they've come. And I didn't see a vortex like you experienced, but I saw like a kind of like a milky, misty, golden presence. And I was so warm. It was so beautiful because they came to get him, and I got to witness it. And like other people are sad, but I'm like, it was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. So I don't have any fear about death at all. And when you believe in magic, you can experience multiple realities. I just wanted to share that.
I totally love that you talked about the 2 tunnels as well, Magenta. Because my birth story when I was in the womb, I mentioned this, I'm sure, briefly, but around 3.5, 4 months in utero, I was declared dead for 2 months almost. And so when you said about giving birth, I was in that vortex. I was in the golden light vortex, and I closed my eyes and I left my body, giving birth to my son this was, and I'm in the pure light, and the pure light says to me, you're not your body. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Okay, I'm not. Back in the body, baby comes out all in one go. Incredible. I saw that vortex. I was in it. And I never felt more real in my entire life. It was like take off the body and the shell and just becoming so light and just having a very thin awareness of I am a human being. It was incredible. So that was like 20 years ago. And since then I've been like, how to be this? Is that possible to be like this in human form all the time? And I don't know if it is. But when you said about the other channel opening up, I felt so emotional in that moment. It was like, oh, because in that utero space, I must have been hovering somewhere, but I don't know what was going on, but I definitely left sense of body. I've done many healings on this in myself where I'm in between states. I'm not back where I came from. I'm not connected to source, but I'm not connected to my mother's body, and in that void space, full on. So lots and lots of stuff happened with that. But thank you so much for sharing about that other aspect of the vortex. Mm-hmm. And the choice to go out, in or out, in or out. And what it made me realize so profoundly, isn't that what's happening right now? And Chrissy, you're talking about the choice. When we talk about the staying, the mass consensual ceremonial exodus, what did you say?
I remembered. Yeah, mass consensual ceremonial. Yes, I had, but yeah.
Evacuation, whatever the words were you said. Or like, do we want to stay on this planet? And I know many people have been choosing to leave. The suicide rates have been off the charts the last few years, and it's just getting so intense and people can't cope. And it's like, yeah, you know, come back next time, guys, come back again. You know, it's too full on. And some of us are really anchored and choosing to stay no matter what, because we're in the eye of the storm, we're in the vortex, we're in the present moment. And all the stuff that's flying around out there in the storm, with the houses are flying, you know, in a hurricane, all the houses are flying, and the cars, and there's death, and there's waves, and there's crashing. And in the eye of the storm, you don't get any of that. You get the bliss, you get the enlightenment, if you like, the absolute presence, and all of these other miracles that are happening in that channel, or the messages, or the angelic helpers, whatever, it's all right there. So I feel like that's a really amazing metaphor for where we are right now. It's like, be in the eye of the storm, be present, be in the bliss, be in the vortex, or hop out and go swirling around in the chaos and get bashed around by it. But you also have a choice that there is another vortex, and actually it all goes to the same place. It's not a this way or a that way with a dead end. It's cyclical. There's love in the whole cycle. It's the toroid. It's not a channel that goes only that way or only that way, you know. It's all the way around. It's connected. That you don't get ejected, you don't get abandoned, you don't get cast out, you don't get lost in space, you know, you're by yourself. It is just a choice, and everyone can really freely make that choice, maybe with a total sense of peace. Like, if it's too much, maybe it's not red pill or blue. I mean, maybe it is on another level, red pill or blue pill, but it could also be in your, you know, do you want to just go through that death channel, leaving the earth now, and it's completely safe, and it could be completely sacred and peaceful, like have death midwives, you know, or have the sacredness, have the sacred choice, and how beautiful that is. Do you know what? And it's all rebirth. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, actually, what if it's all okay for everyone to make that choice, but do it consciously?
Well, Tara, I need to add to that, that I think one of the reasons that people might find it a little scary is because that space that you were speaking about, that you were hovering in between things, it's a very unpleasant space that I've seen, the reincarnation cycle, the forced reincarnation cycle, that makes people go, oh, no way, I'm going to go there again, because I'm going to be pushed straight back into something else. But Magenta, you were earlier mentioning that it seems that is dissolving now, you said, which, yeah, would you please say a little bit more about what you've seen around that? Because it's something that I have been really worried about myself.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I haven't necessarily seen it. This is a channel. This is information coming in from the Nine, which I have brought forward, and that will be a video that will be uploaded, you know, as soon as possible. This came through this morning. As soon as I woke up, I had information in the night. They're talking to me a lot throughout the night, and then when I open my eyes in the morning, it kind of comes in as a download. So what they're saying is, for quite some time, the fifth dimensional individuals have already been able to move away from the reincarnational cycle. Once you're in fifth dimensional consciousness, you're immune from that trapping system, which only goes as far as the fourth dimension, using that model. So fifth dimensional individuals are already not subject to that, but many of them were. When they came into this reality, they chose to go into the fabric of this world. So they knew that, say they came in, you know, several hundred years ago, they knew that they may have to reincarnate over and over again in many, many, many times in order for their own higher frequency, that higher DNA frequency, to, it's almost like the metaphor they showed me, it's almost like you're going through that tunnel, which is the reincarnational tunnel, the same thing as the birthing and the leaving. It's that same vortex, that same tunnel. And as you go through that tunnel, it's like you're leaving an essence of yourself, some kind of key or code or light within the tunnel. So if you can use a metaphor, it's like, you know, taking little bits of light off you and sticking them on the walls of the tunnel as you're incarnating. So when the next individual goes through the reincarnational cycle, they go through the tunnel, they're catching the little keys and codes of light that you left there on the wall. So they're able to raise their frequency. Now, this has gone on for so many years that now these reincarnational tunnels are so full of light that dissolves the whole dark matrix system. The awareness that's happening in the third dimension is dissolving that matrix system. So whilst there are still a very few souls that are in extreme resistance to reincarnation, therefore that extreme resistance to reincarnation brings them back in. And there are other souls that are so very unaware and so entrenched within the third dimensional reality and very dense and heavy in their frequency. They are coming back in, but this is a much smaller amount. And this is dissolving now with the opening of this Alcyone, Pleiadian portal, Stargate. The dissolving of this reincarnational entire matrix mapping is occurring to the point where the service to self negative polarized individuals can no longer gain sustenance and energy from this reincarnational cycle. They're not reincarnating us all anymore. The same thing will start to happen to the animals. Animals that are in the battery farming are reincarnated animal souls, trapped, incarnating over and over again to be eaten for meat, and then coming back in and being slaughtered, and then being eaten, and then coming back in and doing the same thing over and over again. We're freeing these souls as well, energetically, because of the opening of these portals and these galactic grids, but also with all the things that we're doing on the physical level, the declarations of sovereignty, the signing of petitions, the working with the true legal systems in all the countries, with this great awakening that's taking place with the whole virus and lockdown situation. So that's why the cabal, or you know, the higher, I won't say higher, but the topmost cabal members in that pyramidal structure are wanting to continue to trap souls and recycle souls, but they can't do it organically. So that's why they're bringing in the AI. And so this opening of the Alcyone portal is bringing in the antidote to that, which will at first look like an AI program, but it's an AI program that is harmless and helpful, that looks very similar to the one that is the trapping system, because it's presented as life extension. So all of this is occurring around 2021. The Alcyone portal is opening now, and we'll see evidence of this over the next few months into next year. And all of the fifth dimensionally aware individuals will be picking up on the opening of this portal, whether it's a Pleiadian portal or whether they know it's more light coming in or higher galactic codes or motherships, whatever they're seeing, they are being downloaded, these codes. And you were saying, Tara, you know, pack your bags, it's time to go. It's kind of, I think that's the same thing. We're all getting these messages of this ascension experience that we're going through, and it's all tied up together with the birth, the death, the AI. All of it is all one big convergence that's all part of the same thing.
I just completely agree, Magenta, and I get the same thing. And even right now, being reminded that those beings that create the harmful AI, the harmful technology with the harmful agenda, so to speak, that their higher selves have always been active and present and in operation simultaneously to their unconscious self who is creating and designing this. But the higher self intelligence is operating through the creation constantly. I learned this many years ago. I was doing lots of channelings, and the Illuminati energies were all present, and I'm talking to their higher selves saying this is all for the same outcome, the outcome of truth, the outcome of light. Because what happens is what I'm just being shown it and reminded right now, that as, let's say, lower consciousness beings are developing this technology for that agenda. And I just want to say, in some ways, you can't blame them for people who don't want to go around reincarnation all over again, who would. you know, if there's an option, yes, give it to me. Do you know what I mean? So I don't blame anyone for feeling like that. I know we've all felt like that. It's like, God, I don't want to just do this again, right? So there's some compassion for that and some understanding, but actually to rest assured and take heart that the higher self has worked through what they've been developing, so that as we go through this portal, as we go through the birthing portal or the Pleiadian Stargate, or however we're seeing it, as we return home, that stuff doesn't get to come with. It's like when you go into the heart, you cannot bring mind, you cannot bring ego, you cannot bring agenda, you cannot bring an identity of self even. It's all returning home to source, to unconditional love, let's say, and nothing else comes into the heart other than the humble truth. It's like, what does it say in the Bible? Like, it takes the heart of a child to enter the kingdom of heaven. You know, you cannot pass the camel through the eye of a needle. It's like all of this stuff that we're seeing, and it looks pretty scary. You know, the AI agenda with the 53,000 billion satellites around the earth and the whole, you know, the grid around the earth. It's like that cannot make it through that portal as it is. It will have the falling away aspect, the outer layer, the husk, if you like, that you were talking about, Jen. You know, the husk of the popcorn, as it pops open, the husk gets left, and what happens is the higher self design that is actually embedded and implanted in this technology will then come online. That's what we will be seeing, and it has organic kind of at its core, organic intelligence, or if you like, at its core, because it doesn't matter how deep down the dark rabbit hole you go, you still have human DNA, you still have a human earthly mothership, mother codes, divine Gaia mother coding in you, which penetrates just like your birthing experience, Magenta. Got all the other stuff happening, but that divine presence comes through and guides you through. And it's exactly, that's what I'm being told right now. It's exactly what's happening with our artificial intelligence, artificial technology. And it is about your birthing experience. It is trust in your own guidance. Forget the rest. Just get rid of it, and just go with the homing frequency.
Yeah, and people that are feeling inclined to, you know, go along with this whole development and have like something implanted so they can do things faster or speak 10 languages and stuff. Just, I was told by a real expert that about this, that I've interviewed, that you basically, and I mean, you already said it, Magenta, anyway, but you can't die properly anymore. I mean, that's the freakiest thing I've ever heard. You know, I mean, it even says it in the Bible, I think, you know, that in the end chapters that people will, I don't remember what quote it is, but that's a reason enough not to meddle with that kind of stuff, methinks.
Why do we think that there's such a how did this whole idea get started, this whole hatred for life and for the sacredness of life and for creation itself? Because when we look at nature, right, the diversity in nature is incredible. I mean, you can get a praying mantis that looks like an orchid, and then you have like a shark, and then you have like those incredible birds of paradise in Papua New Guinea. Like the creation's mind is incredible. But how does that get created? Is the hatred of life? You know what I mean? Like anybody got any thoughts? Like how do you hate life? Like life is so incredible.
It's not hatred of life, really. It's an anti-life system. So the service to self groups are wanting to move into what we would call, what the Nine call, the God complex. They want to play God. They want to be able to be creator gods, but they don't want to go through the organic service to self path. There are two paths within divinity, and both of them are accepted and allowed within the higher cosmic streams, if you like. So service to others is about opening the heart and being in service to others and seeing every single soul as part of oneself. This is the organic pathway. This is the activation of all the chakras. This is following the law of one. So we don't harm life because all life is us. The service to self path is a path of spiritual dedication, but it's very different. It is a repression of the heart in order to create extreme control. It's a very different pathway. So it's the solar plexus development and the pineal gland development to be able to control oneself and control one's environment. Now, they still have the philosophy that we are all one. However, it's interpreted as we're all one soul, and as long as I exist, then divinity exists and God exists and the higher reality exists. It doesn't matter whether anyone else exists or not, as long as I do. So when I'm actually murdering and killing and destroying life, as long as I still exist, then I haven't done anything, because I still exist. I am all there is. So it's taken from the service to self perspective. That's how it is seen from those in the higher echelons. Now, as you go down the pyramid, within that service to self structure, there are many who do not understand this. They just simply follow the orders of the uplink. But those at the top have this philosophy. So it isn't about hatred of life. It's honoring life as self and self alone, in control of all, as in I am the only living thing that exists. None of you exist. It doesn't matter if I kill you, harm you, murder you, because I still exist. That's the philosophy. But over here on service to others, we love each other. We are all one. Therefore, if you so much as hurt a fly, you are hurting yourself. It's very similar and very different. And that's where this comes from. It's a creation of a different dimensional density. So we're going through ascension and creating the fifth dimensional reality on earth, harmonious, positive, and loving within the law of one. They are going through descension. They are creating a fifth dimensional structure, but it's completely different to ours. It's in total opposition to ours. It's incredibly complex, and that's where they want to go. And in order to create that negative polarized dimension, they need to harvest fear. And in order for us to create the positive polarized dimension, we need to merge with and radiate love. And if you look at radiation as a physics construct, you radiate outwards. So that's light. And then you look at the opposing, you have absorption, which is darkness. You absorb in. So it's radiation outwards and absorption inwards. It's simply a polarity. It's simply a polarity of physics. And so you have humans that incarnate within the radiation polarity, and you have humans that incarnate within the absorption polarity. And that polarity plays out in the third dimensional reality so that we all learn the experiences we came here to learn. What is happening now for those on the service to others pathway, because there will be those that incarnate into a negative fifth dimensional reality in a descension. If they polarize negative, that's where they will go. Completely different timeline to us. What's happening now is a raising of polarity. We don't need this swing anymore between absorption and radiation. We're moving into radiation. We're raising up, and that's what the fourth density or fifth dimensional reality is. It's a complete shift in polarity. That's why a lot of people pick up the whole messages about pole shift. It's not a pole shift in a physical sense. It's a polarity shift. It's a raise in polarity, which may or may not affect the magnetics of our human system and of the planet. You know, it's the same thing as the mothership. The mothership is within, and that may or may not be an actual ship, because higher frequencies do set within the physical reality. So these literal interpretations of these messages can happen, but ultimately this is about a raise in polarity. So it's not about hatred of life. It's an anti-life system of absorption as opposed to a pro-life system of radiation.
So thank you very much for clarifying that, because it kind of like it's a bit of a mind blow to try to figure that out. And so I wanted to add something, and of course it's completely gone. Maybe I'll come back in a second.
I would just like to add also that we are coming to the end of the, you know, in Hinduism, you've got the swastika turned backwards, which is actually that talks about the yugas, the 25,500 year yugas. So we're now coming to the end of Kali Yuga. And so how my spirit team showed me, it's like each yuga is like a massive, thick encyclopedia. And it's like my team are like, we're literally about to do the full stop on Kali Yuga. Like we're done, we're complete, and we're about to close that book. But what's being played out now is just the last little bit, because obviously a yuga is a very long time. So but they're like, we're done. When we do the full stop, that will be the solar flash or the comet, whatever it's going to be. And then that's going to also go into the golden age, the Satya Yuga. But there's also timelines that are running concurrently as well. So obviously we've got the timeline of the Satya Yuga, which is already being played out, and it has already anchored. So that's already being played out on a higher dimensional realm. And now the lower dimensional realms have just got to catch up. And what I've been shown is that victory to the light, like God's plan is victorious. Like God doesn't have a plan B. God doesn't need a plan B. So it's like we are going into the Satya Yuga. Like that is an actual fact. And all these people that are playing these roles, it's all been orchestrated in order to create so much darkness, because I think that we have to get to a certain sort of like collective level of darkness in order to flip. So it feels like even these horrific people like Hill Hates, whatever his name is, and whatever their names are, they are actually working for, I know it's really weird and it's like unfathomable, but somehow they're all working for the purpose of the light, to get us to make that shift, to go, it can't get any worse than this. It just can't get any worse than this. We're going to take it to the extreme level, a bit like an elastic band. It's like they're going to like, the darkness is stretching and stretching and how much can they take, how much, but there's only so far it can go. And then it's just going to spring back into the golden age. So I think it's really, really important that we remind everyone that at this time, when there's all these different narratives that are vying for our energy and attention, it's very important where we focus our attention. And so I'm really, really focusing on the fifth dimensional golden age timeline, focusing on my blessings, focusing on raising my vibration, doing all those things to keep my vibration really, really high. Definitely not going into the fear narrative. If that does come up, checking that, processing that, getting back to the 0 point. Always just keep on coming back to the 0 point. And I think if all of us, the more that we can do that on an individual level and attain that very, very high level of sovereignty on an individual level, the more of us that can do that, the more we will attract and be able to anchor this fifth dimensional golden age. So the onus is on all of us individually to do the work and to be in the 0 point and and just be awake. That's it.
And also, as we are awakening and popping like popcorn, it's amazing to see that I'm seeing so many people's relationships where maybe one person was hidden and playing more of the narcissist, but the other person couldn't see it, because the energy that's amplifying is bringing out truth. And so what I was seeing with what Magenta was saying, and now what you're saying, is that if we follow this kind of system, the way that it's been playing out is very much the empath and the narcissist. And so the empathic role has been a lot of the angel, star seeds, galactic beings who are really allowing ourselves to be harvested off of, because we felt like, I need to save you, or I need to play this role for you. And as we are now learning more and more self-love and connecting to the mother and understanding sovereignty, we're now saying, okay, no, actually, I'm not going to play this role for you anymore, without really realizing maybe that we were playing that role. So I'm seeing that a lot of relationships are now ending, or someone is known for 5 years is suddenly coming out and they're like a different person. And it's really that there's just a lot of darkness that's coming to the light. And the other thing that I was going to say is, what I see also happening within that window is that as you have star seeds and angels and galactic beings that are awakening and wanting to ascend and are ascending, we also have the people that are now suddenly maybe being more honest about, yeah, I'm a narcissist. And within that, they're actually kind of descending, which is very connected to that Bill Gates, AI, and all those that are at the, and it's not even just Bill Gates, but it's a very service to self, Luciferian type of program, which is why sometimes I feel like, wow, we have the fallen angels and the angels. This is just kind of the way that I see it, because it is also quite biblical in that who was the most prideful of them all was Lucifer. And so it's not that the knowledge has been anybody's downfall. It's pride. What are you going to do with that? Are you going to serve the one? Are you going to serve the collective? Or is it service to self? And that's really the difference between both, where both come from. So I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. That's awesome. And what a great way to end. So Chrissy, it looks like you want to, everybody unmute. If you.
I just wanted to say just one thing, that what you said, Jen, about the Gil Bateses of our world playing their role. That's exactly what I've been feeling for so long, and I feel this unexplainable love for the fact that they were willing to drink the poison.
Yeah.
You know, and that this is why I never like negative posts about the asshole doing this or whatever. I never feel okay about it, because I always have this feeling of, no, the friction that they're creating is is helping the process unfold.
That's awesome.
I agree. And even like we look back into history and people like Hitler, when I've looked at his soul and hung out with him, you know, and had conversations with his soul, he's like, no, my higher self was instructing me. I had a really hard role to play. Everyone hates me. I know I was an evil what's it, but it needed to happen because that envelope needs to get pushed, like you were saying, Jen, right to the extreme. And the souls that have incarnated to push that agenda into our faces, to put that dark agenda into our faces, are extremely powerful souls to have to take that. And to create that much resistance and hold such hatred from humanity, I bless those souls. You know, I truly do. They are beautiful souls that have incarnated into an incredibly hard role, and I love them for it, because it's helped our awakening. It's just part of the bigger story. And what you just said there, beautiful Nina, is like the whole Garden of Eden story starts to come into play. And Paula, you know, your original question about that was like, how did this all begin? And it's like, well, back in the beginning. The angels and the fallen angels, and maybe somebody had a painful birth, and that was the beginning of the end, you know. A baby was born in pain, and let the rest be history. But yeah.
And that's exactly how we lift a world, is not through false witness, by witnessing the divine in everything, in spite of how they show up, in spite of how they behave, high and low and in between. And so that's I think a great place to end. So ladies, thank you. Please stay on for a moment. Thank you everyone for sitting in this wonderful circle and sharing their love. So grateful for that. Thank you. Until next time.